Liam closed his first deal for $6,000 inside of his voice AI agency and another 4K deal right after that. Then we have Imre, who closed his very first deal for $1,200 and had a follow-up project right after that for another 5K. Then we have Ivo, who also closed a deal for 17.6K for an enterprise client, also with the methods and information we have available inside of our voice AI bootcamp. And now the big question arises, are they actually real people? Do they actually make money with this? And I can confirm they do, because I met them live in Germany. You have Liam right here, you have Imre right here, me right here, and there's Henrik. And obviously a lot of other really cool voice AI agency owners and enthusiasts. This was our first meetup we had in Frankfurt, Germany, which you can also find more details about inside of our community. And the reason I'm sharing this is because they're all crushing it inside of the voice AI agencies. But the real question is, how do they do that? Others are stuck chasing leads and getting very cheap projects, and these guys are closing pretty high ticket deals. It's definitely not magic, but simple, proven tactics. And in this video, I'm going to show you 5 of them that have a high leverage and a high impact. This will help you to find qualified leads, close high ticket projects, streamline their delivery, and make sure that you can scale remotely and profitably. I'm Yannis, and I built a 6-figure voice AI agency from scratch and fully remote. We've worked with startups, local businesses, and even up to Fortune 200 companies to create voice agents inside of their business, stuff like lead reactivation agents, customer support, lead qualification, etc. And now we're already teaching over 3,000 AI enthusiasts how they can do the same, and the best part of it is that we're just getting started. To get right into it, you see on my screen the very first tactic, which is the icebreaker offer. The icebreaker offer is something that we recommend all of our students because it is the easiest way on starting a relationship with a company. As you can see here, it breaks the ice and starts the relationship. Instead of trying to sell or fulfill high ticket services right away, you offer a smaller, easier commitment that builds trust and opens the door for upsells later. You can imagine that inside the voice AI space, building out a proper solution definitely takes a lot of time, and especially testing, because rather than taking care of the tech, you are more of a conversational artist that tries to get the most out of the actual prompt engineering, so you get a better outcome for the AI, a more maybe human-like interaction, and obviously better data, which is the most important thing of all. So having an easy entry helps not just you to deliver things quicker, but it also helps your clients to get an idea on how well you work. And there's a couple of things that I wrote down right here, which are basically the traits of what makes a icebreaker offer such a great thing, which is a low price or no-brainer value. So it's very easy to see for the client what it does. It is very quick to deliver, so minimal work. You basically don't try to build up a whole system first of all and then just try to deliver that and make the whole process complicated. You want to make it very easy for the client to understand. Then it solves one specific problem. Obviously, like everything, it needs to be value driven, which you're going to see in the other tactics as well. But it needs to be solving a specific problem that is easy to understand in the best possible way, even with a single sentence that you can potentially use for cold outreach or wherever you got your clients from. And then lastly, it also leads naturally into the main offer. And you see a little asterisk right here, because the main offer is a thing that might not even be that clear. So especially if you have no industry experience, in the beginning, you probably don't really know what your main offer looks like. That's why you've seen in other videos that I created, we have a handover solution where you create this whole thing, build it out on the client's tech stack, and hand it over, right? So this is a thing that we recommend for people that don't have any experience. And what I mean by this, that it leads naturally to your main offer, is because when you create an icebreaker offer and the client sees, wow, he actually delivered on something and it actually makes sense and it actually works, they will come back to you immediately with more requirements, as you have probably seen with Imre's project in the beginning as well. Because now they see that you can deliver, that you actually do a good job, and that you can provide them value, which is the main thing that you need to get authority and turn them into a long-lasting client. To give you even more details on why that works, I created a couple of examples right here, which are fairly easy to understand. And you can see here right here, we have a $70 audit for a $2,000 a month service. $27 is a fairly small amount for a business owner, knowing that you can probably deliver something that is worth thousands of dollars to them. So just allowing you to make an audit and showcase them based on data that you have probably already collected from other projects prior, to showcase them this offer, it's like a no-brainer. $27 they can probably just throw out to get more information on the data and potentially get something out of it. So very easy one. Here's a voice AI test call for $99 to preview your full automation suite. This is again from a different perspective. So if you're already working with a predefined service that offers voice AI automations right out of the box, or it's already a vertical solution, you can just help set up a demo call with it. You can even use Vapi, for example, to set up a demo call and just showcase that to them based on a single assistant that you created, so that they get a look and feel for it on how it works. Because at least right now in this point of time, people still don't really understand what voice AI is. It is the little bubble that we are living in, and the people that watch our videos, that they understand what voice AI is. But I promise you, if I go out there and I ask someone, they most likely have never heard of it. They most likely don't even know that voice AI is actually a thing. So this seems like something very obvious for us and probably something that doesn't work, but a lot of people still live in the magic and illusion that having an AI on the phone that calls and actually understands is a thing that doesn't really exist. So that is something to keep in mind. So in that case, it works because you kind of sell the magic out of it, right? Then another thing that we can do is a lead generation mini campaign with guaranteed results. That works really well if you already have some sort of pre-offer that you have previously sold. Or let's, for example, say you're an ad specialist, you can create Facebook ads and you want to qualify them. You know for sure how much leads you will get for a certain campaign if you set it up in the right way. So you already have some predefined leads that you can just showcase to the client whenever you basically create a lead form and call those leads and bring them straight into their calendar. So this is a thing that you would set up for yourself and then basically resell as a done for you service. And since you already have the system in place, probably it's very easy for you to just plug and play in a new customer, say, all right, let's just run a campaign, try it for 10 weeks or for like a week, and you will see how your calendar gets filled up with new booked appointments. So that's another thing that you can do. In that case, it's already a bit more advanced, right? Because that icebreaker offer means you already need to have some sort of experience that you can leverage, which is also why we often teach people to leverage the industry experience they have, because it will put them so much more ahead. And then lastly, we have a predefined voice AI solution that leads to paid customizations. Imagine you build a use case for your specific needs by yourself that you just didn't deploy for any customer, but you just used it to create it for yourself as a learning experience or as a learning curve. This solution can be also used as a demo or as an example that you can pass along to other companies so they get a feeling for what's currently possible. Now again, it's fairly low effort because you can just send it over. You maybe adjust the company details, you maybe put in some different variables, and it will work right out of the box without you doing much customizations. And given that they listen to it and given that they like the way it interacts, you can easily upsell customizations, which is also something that Imre did. Once he delivered his first project, he got a follow-up project from that same client because he did a great job, because he delivered something awesome. And obviously, if a client sees you do something right, they want to continue working with you. Now, there's one more thing that I added to it, which I think is also really important to understand, mostly for yourself, which is why that actually works. And that is because it removes friction, right? You have a lower commitment, and that makes a big difference. In the beginning, when I started out with our voice AI agency, I hit them with any kind of random prices. And in the beginning, it was perfectly fine because it was so rare to find someone that actually knew what they were doing that I could charge them basically ridiculous amounts of money, which I had to figure out as well, that what is actually a feasible amount and what not, right? In the beginning, when I started out, there wasn't even a proper documentation on how to build voice AI agents. So I started with $1,200 for our first project. We closed it. Then I went to 2K, then I went to 3K, and I went to 10K. Basically tried this whole row and everything worked out. But at some point in time, I would say probably 6 months in, people started to become more hesitant with a 10K fee, knowing on how complex it actually is, because back at that time, I obviously had this kind of authority and the monopoly, right? I was basically one of the only few people that could build them, which kind of put me in a good position. But then the more people advance and understand that there are many solutions out there and they don't know if they necessarily want to pay a 10K fee, you need to again go full on for the value. And that's also a thing that takes time to understand, especially for the clients. So if you don't know about a business, or you don't know right from the start that you have an offer that is so damn good and irresistible that you can sell it right from the first sales call, try these icebreaker offers because they remove the friction. You sell a smaller package to a company to get the foot in the door, to get things off the ground. Then it also obviously builds trust and demonstrates your value, kind of what we've seen with Imre's example, and it warms up cold leads into paying clients. Right? It's an easier entry for cold leads as well because they obviously don't need to go into a hard commitment. So it's also easier that you get an answer, which also increases the chance of you getting replies on your cold email campaigns, for example, if that is a method that you're using. Now, given the data-backed information about offers, we now have the next part here, which is value-driven offers. So don't confuse that with any specific offers. It's more like something that you can put into anything that you actually offer. It needs to be value-driven. Right in the beginning, when I told you, I basically could just charge any kind of random amount and people signed up for it. It was mainly because it was so unique, this market. It was so special and there was barely anyone available. You need to pay whatever someone else tried to get for it because they, in my case, for example, I also didn't know how much to actually charge, right? So I had to figure that out myself. And it was a good thing because often projects took 6 months to deliver. Like we had projects that took ages to deliver. So there's always this weird feeling of not knowing where to price things, which we kind of solved now for our community because we did that so many times that we can teach them. And now we know that in the time we are living right now, we're basically already over this incredibly crazy hype where there's no people that can actually deliver, but we actually educate people on how to do those things, which now brings us to the era of value-driven offers, which is the most powerful thing of all. And this is actually something that's even better than the previous offerings that we did on where you just charge any kind of amount and you try to hope for the best. A value-driven offer gives your audience something so useful and instantly beneficial, they feel silly saying no. It offers a clear pressing problem and it's framed around delivering outcomes, not just features. This is a great definition, which you can, by the way, also download from within our community community with a link that is below this video, so you can get access to this whole document and can leverage it for yourself. But this setup right here is what makes things so powerful, and all comes back to the same thing, which is data. You want to collect data, and especially in the beginning, getting data is very hard, especially because if you don't have any industry experience, figuring things out requires you to already get a project, but you only get a project that works really well if you already have data, right? Because then you know what to sell, you know how to price it. So there is always this on and off. We have tons of methods on how you can get around that and basically find clients even without having this data-backed information. So all of that is basically part of our Voice AI Bootcamp. You can check it out there. But the main goal is providing something like handover solutions so that you can get a feel for the market and then leverage whatever you build to gather that information. Now, I can give you this nice example that we always had. We had this very big client in one of the industries where you created a lead reactivation agent for, and we figured out that one of the leads that we reactivated might be worth around $10,000 to $12,000. So given that we now have a number, we figured out how many percentage of those people we reactivated, right? We knew that it was around 10K to 12K for a successful lead reactivation. And from that, we can literally just take a percentage and create an offer around that. So rather than hitting someone with an upfront fee, we can say, hey, we're going to run the whole thing for you. We're just going to charge you 10% on the actual value of one of those reactivated leads. So you basically make 90% profit. Awesome. No one really says no to that because it's a very data-backed information that you can just give them along and they can literally see it on paper that this works. And obviously the higher the price, the more hesitation there is. So making sure you're adding a guarantee to it is always great. And you can probably allow yourself to add a guarantee to it once you have data, because data is literally everything. You'll hear that from me all the time, but so better get used to it. Now, if we put that together into a small list, I have right here key traits of a great value-driven offer. We have it solves a real high priority problem. Obviously something that probably makes the money, that maybe saves the money, that maybe eases the amount of work or the tension within the workspace. So if you have, for example, a front desk that always deals with angry customers, being able to automate those phone calls takes a lot of tension off them, probably helps them to be happier at the workplace, more productive, and focus on other things that are more relevant. So you get a lot of benefits out of that. And making this clear to the client is very, very high priority to them because they can obviously get a better outcome, right? That also goes together, obviously, with tangible results. So you need basically something that is measurable. Otherwise, it might be really, really hard, especially if you don't have any capital. Then you want to have a fast payoff, at least in the beginning. And that counts especially for icebreaker offers. For other offers, it is okay if you can prove that the data works after X amount of times. But usually with what we've seen with phone calls, they will usually bring results immediately because they're obviously being used, because your service is doing active calls with someone, and doing active calls means you get active data, which means you have a fast payoff. So that's in the voice AI space something fairly easy to understand, but it's something I wanted to mention. And lastly, we have obviously the best selling point, which is like having a shortcut or an unfair advantage, because we noticed as well, nowadays a lot of people can basically build their own little voice AI agent, but it's not working great. So they would need to spend time on it, figure out how it works, try to set up the connections, optimize the agent, maybe test it, make sure it's maintained, etc. And being able to give them a solution out of the box where you basically handle all of this overhead, they are very into it, especially if they know the value that comes along with it, right? So those are great traits that you should always keep in mind. And to give you some more examples, right here I have 3 of them. The first one is a plug-and-play voice AI script that books lead on autopilot. Very easy, everyone wants lead, and if they can do that manually or automatically rather than manually, it is obviously a big plus, right? Because they don't need to spend the time. They maybe don't even need to pay setters or closers, depending on how sophisticated your AI is. Then a done-for-you funnel that turns cold traffic into booked calls. Kind of the same thing. You just save them tons of time and you probably extra money as well, because the AI can basically qualify them, and the AI is actually pretty good in qualifying people on the phone. And then we have a pre-vetted lead list with emails, phone numbers for 100 ideal buyers. Now, this is a very tricky one, especially if it's cold calling, because cold calling is very harshly regulated and there are tools around it. We teach that as well. So we have, for example, Twins AI, which is optimized for cold calling in the US, which is also completely compliant with TCPA, etc. So that is something you might want to look into, but it's definitely something that works. And this might be also something really cool. If you say pre-vetted lead list, it might be even that you reactivate old leads where you already have the permission to call them, right? And that obviously also needs to be in boundaries, and you want to make sure you test things before and not bombard them with 10 million calls. There are always really cool ways on what we call a call cadence to basically lay that out and make sure you call them a few times at the right time to make sure you get a higher pickup rate and can get actually better results. And lastly, we go again over the section why that works, so you hopefully really get an understanding of where that actually brings value, which is that you tap into existing demand, right? So there is some sort of problem and someone wants something from you. you can very, very easily sell that when the problem is clear. And that is what happens when you have a data-backed offer. So you understand the data, you understand the value that you can provide. So it becomes more clear for the person. And obviously, if there is a pain, there's usually demand. And this is kind of the demand I'm talking about. Then the second one is it doesn't require much persuasion because data sells itself. Right? You provide something, the numbers, you show them exactly how much you can reactivate or how much time you save them, how much money you make them. It is very, very easy for them to understand when they see the data in front of them, given obviously that your data is correct and that it's honest and ethical. So that's obviously something you got to handle yourself. But given that, it kind of sells itself because it's very, very easy to set up. And it's often the gateway to a high ticket based backend service. And you've probably seen that in one of my previous videos. There are tons of ways on how you can upsell even those value-driven offers, meaning that you have an icebreaker offer somewhere, then you sell in your high ticket offer, and from the high ticket offer you can even create more offers around it, which might be things like automated maintenance or monitoring. So those things would be extra packages that you can add on top, and you can easily get a $2,000, $2,500, $3,000, $5,000 monthly recurring revenue deal with one of the bigger companies, where this kind of things become really, really important and crucial, especially ensuring that you can optimize the quality, the success rate of calls. Now I'm already excited for the fifth point, but let's continue with the third one. The fifth one is a very special one. That's the reason why I mentioned it. I'm very excited for that one. But the third one is repetitive task automation. And that is also a very, very cool one, and something that we, especially in the space we are in, we assume, all right, yeah, we can just automate stuff. Why not just automate stuff? The problem is that we need to automate the right things. And this sentence basically reframes or frames it really well. Repetitive task automation is a scaling tactic that eliminates a daily mindless task your team repeats over and over again. It is incredibly important to read over and over again. I have seen it so many times that people inside of their agency or business start to automate tasks right from the start because they think, oh yeah, there is something that I'm probably going to do manually and let me just automate that. And then in the end, it works out completely different. And I was in the same position. So I spent tons of time on automating things that don't need to be automated or can't even be automated at this point, simply because I don't have enough data on it. And data means understanding that it's actually mundane and really repetitive. And I even have a nice example of that right below there. But first of all, let's look into some important details, which is right here. So when a task is truly repetitive, meaning that it has basically the same input, there are always the same processes, and it always brings the same output. And you will feel that whenever you do that, you feel it's always the same thing. You kind of become faster in doing it, which also means that you obviously see is obviously repetitive because you get faster in it. Otherwise, you would probably not get faster in it in the first place. Then it happens daily, weekly, or maybe even with every client or with every sign up, however that looks like, or every onboarding. And then it doesn't require deep thinking or constant decision making. That's another big thing. So you'll see at some point you're just working on autopilot on some things. You do them over and over again, and they're just becoming tedious because you know, rather than thinking about the task itself, you think already about something else, and then maybe you start making mistakes because you start thinking about something else. So those are the ones that you want to fix. And right here with a nice diamond, because I think it's that important, if a task varies too much, don't automate it. Fix the system first. Like I say, if there is something that can't be automated at this point, there is probably some structure that is missing, which might sound a bit weird, but trust me on that one. If there's something that's not fully automatable, meaning you have still too much variability in whatever you do at this point, which means there are other processes that need to be automated so that you have things in place to automate this little gap of where you currently think you can automate it, even though it's probably not the right time to automate it. I know that sounds very complicated, but you'll see that yourself, that whenever you do something repetitively, only then you automate it. And if you're not there and you think you could automate it, but you're not sure if you want to, you probably don't do it often enough until you figure out whether or not this is actually repetitive. So that's literally one of the biggest learnings that I can give you along, in which these agencies that I've shown you before as well use, because obviously at the beginning, a lot of things are very variable. And for yourself, you figure out how some of the things work so that you can leverage them. And one of them that is very repetitive, and we have identified that in the agency as well, which is something we teach, which is creating dynamic proposals. This solution alone saved me already hours of time, literally hours, probably even weeks of me sitting in sales calls and trying to create a proposal manually. But you can actually fully automate that if you have things like Fathom or Fireflies, or basically any kind of AI note taker that allows you to extract information and basically feed it with a webhook or another request somewhere else. You can, for example, use Fathom in that case to basically take the call notes, basically the call recordings, and you can summarize them. You can use AI with N8N or Make.com, for example, to run chat completions and create a structure for a proposal that you can then feed into a Google Docs template with dynamic tags to fill in those tags with the information that you extracted and basically create a proposal in literal minutes rather than hours. This is a massive game changer that has been super powerful, and it's something that you might think, why doing that in the first place? Why do I need a proposal in the first place? I can probably just text them via email. Yes, but if you have a proper proposal that is inside of a document and that looks good and that you can send along as a PDF, trust me, who gets higher authority because they have the imagination or the feeling that they put in a lot of more effort into really understanding your project. If you combine that then with proper prompt engineering, so you really understand how you can outline the project and then maybe do some tweaks to it, you can really turn this into a super, super powerful weapon that you can leverage to get things done so much quicker, so much more effective, and you can outline and price projects also a lot better. And then lastly, that's probably something a lot of you know, but I want to make sure I mention it, why this whole thing matters for scaling. It obviously frees up your bandwidth, right? You don't want to do repetitive tasks, and neither does your team. It's something that you just pay people for that could be automated and they can spend time on other things. Then it also removes bottlenecks and the human error, which in my opinion is probably even one of the more important ones, because human error is something we often neglect. But if you do repetitive tasks, you have time to think about something else and then you don't focus on the task again. So if you're somewhere semi in between and you don't do the task for years, which hopefully you'll never do, you should probably automate that and avoid these extra errors that you create. Then it also allows you to do more with fewer people or potentially with the same amount of people that you have, but then obviously more in a scalable perspective with other tasks that are more relevant. And it increases consistency across your business, because obviously it is important that your business looks and feels always very productive and, I don't know, based on your brand style and tone of voice. You can do that with automations very, very well, especially leveraging LLM for creating text or context that is trained specifically on the tone of voice of your brand. Now, the next one is one that is actually very critical, and it's often a massive blocker for companies, especially for the ones just starting out, and not even for the ones starting out, basically for anyone that sees this shiny new thing, this woman in the red dress that they try to pursue and switch path and go somewhere else. And that is market first, polish later. We are often stuck in the belief that we need to create the perfect product, we need to create the perfect solution, we need to make sure it's most human, it's super short delay in between messages whenever we create voice agents, etc. It needs to be perfect, but that usually doesn't matter. I always use this nice analogy of, you could, for example, build something on bamboo. If it would bring the results to the clients, they wouldn't mind. They want the results, and that's literally all they care for. So making sure that you can market things first and basically focus on the things that bring the results to the clients and then handle the whole tech and the actual feature set on the more advanced things, it is a lot better for various reasons, which I'm also going to show you right here. Now, scrolling down a little bit, we can see why that matters. So, and that's probably super, super important, that many founders and builders, they often love tweaking code, mainly because they are really, really motivated on creating a product. They just love building around it. They like to redesign dashboards, refactor system. I've seen people spending weeks on literally just refining the color palette on the website that anyways has no clicks because they never really marketed it. But they do these things, and this is literally very common. I know that because I have been in the same position years ago when I started building products. I built products and I actually never marketed them and then just lost interest and just dropped them off. And I literally still have them laying around somewhere. But this is something really, really bad. So if you're not actively generating leads, you're just building a vacuum. Think about that. You're building a product, but if no one knows about it, how are you supposed to make money? You're feeling like an entrepreneur, you're feeling like a business owner, but if no one sells your product or doesn't even know about it, how are you expecting to make money from that? It just doesn't work. It kind of always needs to go together. That's why we tell people, learn at least the basics of how the tech works so you understand a bit on how it works. Maybe build out a solution for yourself. It's definitely not going to be pretty and it's definitely not going to be super, super good, but you can refine that process while doing the marketing. Especially in the beginning, you don't have such a high load of leads that you have to structure everything around the leads in the first place. So you still have time to create some extra tech stuff and basically learn along the side. But the main reason I'm mentioning this is because the majority of your time should go to marketing and outreach. It's literally the main thing that we teach. Once you know a bit about the tech, you focus solely on marketing and outreach, pursuing a niche, which we're also going to come to. And that is one that you should definitely not miss. Then I have a nice example here that you really want to understand. And I think this one brings it pretty much to the point. Instead of spending weeks on adding custom API endpoints or refining your website colors, literally just record a 90-second Loom video, DM it to 20 potential customers, and get the feedback and interest. That might not even need to be DMs, but you can literally just call them or potentially ask your friends. Mostly anyone of your family members knows some business owner somewhere, right? Even if it's a local business, it doesn't matter. You can literally reach out to them and ask them something relevant. If you don't know what to ask them, that's a whole different story. That's why we have our bootcamp for. But this is literally something you should prioritize all the time before creating more product that you don't even know whether or not it's going to be relevant. Because like I said here, you can always improve the product after there's proof that someone wants it. Because when you're just starting out, you don't know what people actually need. You maybe think of what they want, but that is very, very often not even the case that they actually want that. They might want something different. And that outcome is really, really variable. I always thought as well, it's very easy. If someone wants to get leads, it's about getting leads. But if someone gets leads, it's often not even the right leads. They would not even purchase. So there is tons of variability that makes it really difficult and very important for you to understand that focusing on the right things is incredibly crucial. Now, lastly, to emphasize the things again, we're going to go down to the section why this actually works, which is obviously it speeds up validation, right? You want to get a product market fit. You want to see if you can market something well. You want to make money with that. This literally helps us speed up validation because the earlier you get feedback from actual leads, from actual people that might be interested in your solution, you will see whether or not it's worth pursuing. And then obviously it brings leads in early, which is something that we all want and we should always prioritize. It builds up confidence and momentum because you need to do something that is usually very uncomfortable, which is talking to people, especially in the internet and especially when you want to sell something, right? So there are different methods. I'm still a bigger fan of inbound methods, mainly because I've come from a more introverted perspective, while others that are literally just good talking to people, they can probably go out into events and just talk to them straight away and they probably don't even need to build confidence in the first place, but it's a thing I wanted to mention. And lastly, we have forces clarity on what really matters. This is something I just mentioned because I literally lived through it and many other people did as well. You obviously need to really, really understand, and I just love to emphasize it one more time. Working on your tech doesn't make you money. Learning new skills doesn't make you money. Marketing those skills, reaching out to people, that actually brings you the money, right? So you can learn things, but you should never get stuck in the learning curve or jump from one thing to another. Especially in the world of AI, you've probably seen with the paralysis of choice. There's so much out there that you can learn. You switch in between topics, and that's also something I've seen so many times, especially in our community. People come in, they think voice AI is great, but then see the next shiny thing and jump off to another shiny thing and then again to another shiny thing. They just never find their ground. So if you have something that works, just stick to it. Literally just use a solution. Try to find a value, a purpose where you can build something for and build something for that industry. This is literally all you need. It doesn't even matter which kind of tools are out there, and often even in the same industry like we are, there's so many voice AI tools. Do we use them? Not really. We research them, we see competitors, we obviously monitor the market. But if we build a solution on one tool, this tool is going to work, and we know that it's going to work because we already built it on it, right? So why not just reuse the same thing again? So that is very, very important for you to understand, and I really hope that one brings you value. But now let's head to my favorite one of all, which is pick a niche, not a life partner. And that is something that I market literally in mostly any kind of Q&A call that I have inside of our community, because people are very, very hard on themselves, especially if it comes to choosing a niche. We get always the same question. What is a great niche? Which niche should I go into? Is that niche actually, has it enough market share? In the end, it doesn't even matter. There are people making money with the most ridiculous things out there, and the niches are super small, but they can charge massive amounts of money just because there's less demand, because the niche is smaller. So it always kind of balances out somewhere. And not just that, if we go into pick a niche, not a life partner, this whole concept gets basically reinvented, meaning that now, let's say, for example, you chose a niche and you want to pursue it. And then you figure, but what if I don't really like that niche? What if I don't want to pursue that niche? It is not that you need to marry that niche. And that's something that I wrote down here as well. Choosing a niche doesn't lock you in forever. It just gives you a starting point, a clear focus, so you're not spinning in circles, trying to be everything to everyone. You have a niche as some sort of guidance rather than a life partner that you just marry and stick with it for the rest of your life. You are always very flexible. And if you go back to the beginning of the video with Liam, for example, went into the hospitality industry. He created a lot of YouTube content about hospitality and he landed clients. But guess what? None of the clients he landed were actually in the hospitality industry. And you got to understand that when you put out content about one niche, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're married to it. If you put out content and someone else sees it and sees, oh, wow, this guy actually built something really cool. Maybe that works for my industry too. They will reach out and you can build a solution for that. So having a niche is more of a guidance to give you some sort of purpose and help you push through the hard times of the unknown, things that you don't know, while just pushing through and taking along whatever you find. And then whenever you get a client, you deliver something, you gather the data, and that gives you a more clear pathway towards where you want to go with your voice AI agency. Now, going down to why this matters. If you try to help everyone, you help no one, including yourself. Really, really important to understand. And this is very generic, but imagine, for example, if you have millions of followers, it's probably very likely that whatever you do, you will get some sort of engagement on it, right? But if you're just starting out and you try to serve everything, you basically just don't get any authority at all, because people don't really know whether or not you're serious. They see on your channel you do things about real estate, and then about restaurants, and then about general AI. Especially one of my favorite examples is when I go on LinkedIn and I see someone like, I automate your business to become more efficient, or automate those redundant processes. It literally just doesn't tell anything what you actually do. It just tells them that you do something with AI and that you're probably not really good with that. So that's one of the things that I like to mention. Be very specific about the things you do. So when you pick a niche, make sure that you speak clearer, you sell faster, and you build purposefully. You can always evolve or pivot things later. So when you build out a solution that is actually feasible, you also understand obviously more about the industry, which makes it also more likely that you actually see the pain points in that industry. And even if that's not the case, like in the example of Liam, you will get people from different industries that come to you and see what you do and think, oh yeah, that might actually be a nice fit. So having at least some sort of niche gives you everything that you need to have the guidance to get started, to gain industry experience in something, and basically get you started in one way or the other. If it's relevant, who knows? You might pivot somewhere else. But what I can definitely tell you is that whatever you do, even if it's in a super duper small niche, you will get some sort of results or inquiries from people that are interested in whatever you do. This is perfectly normal, and this is literally something that you need to understand, because there are so many people that have interest in things, that see random things on YouTube. You probably have seen as well really weird videos on YouTube sometimes, and this is all just the case because algorithms push out things and they try to allow other people to be seen as well. So given that, don't marry your niche, you're dating it. That's a very cool thing that you can remember. So you don't marry your niche, you're dating it. Very good. Then down here, use it to gain clarity, momentum, and traction. And then double down or change course based on the real feedback. Literally just what I explained, right? So that is something you can even print out and put on your wall if you want to be reminded on that every day. It is just something to help you stay more accountable and have something feasible, because we all don't like to dip in the unknown. We always want to have some clear pathway that we can follow. And if that's not the case, things are often getting out of hand because we feel overwhelmed. We like to have a clear pathway and not just try everything and then basically land nowhere. Then let's go over why this actually works. Again, it gives you focus and direction. So it gives you some sort of meaning, which makes things easier. Speed up marketing and offer creation. Obviously the same, you don't tap in the dark and you don't market general things like everyone else and never really gets results. Helps you build real confidence and data, and makes it easy to be seen and remembered. Because obviously if you're an expert in a specific industry, or you at least showcase that you have some sort of authority, people will remember you. It's literally as simple as that. See me with Vapi videos, right? Now, lastly, I have one more thing that I want to give you along, which is my niche ideation prompt template. This is something I have added for free inside of our Voice AI Bootcamp. You can literally just go over there. The link is in the description below. You're most welcome to just use any kind of content there. We literally structured this whole Voice AI Bootcamp completely for free, so you can start your very own Voice AI agency, understand the concepts behind it, and potentially get some extra tailored guidance and support along the way with a really awesome community. Now, I hope all of this gave you some insights and it actually helped you a little bit somewhere. If it does, I'd really appreciate if you just drop a comment below and tell me which of them has been the most valuable to you. I'm definitely going to read through them, and I'm very happy to answer you any kind of questions you have as well, because my goal is helping you. That's one of the reasons I have this whole channel. And that's all I have to say for now. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one.